response from nearly every one of the governments represented here has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence. Perhaps you can now understand why Israel is not joining you in celebrating this deal.
All right, folks, that's the abbreviated edition of the 44 seconds of silence that Benjamin Netanyahu gave to the United Nations General Assembly yesterday, welcoming in Richard Perle, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, former Chairman of the Pentagon's Defense Policy Board, and former Assistant Secretary of Defense. Always great to talk to you, sir. Let's touch on this first. To me, watching that speech, which was powerful in and of itself, but when he paused for 44 seconds and stared down that body, I really have never seen anything like it.
Well, they've never seen anything like it either, because it is uncharacteristically assertive for speeches to the UN, which are normally platitude followed by platitude. But he made a very compelling case that the rise of Islamist terrorism is a threat to the whole world, and of course an existential threat to Israel. So it's understandable that he believes that the others in that room can't comprehend the severity of the threat.
Yeah, and unfortunately the room was half empty, as is usually the case when any member of the Israeli government gets up there to speak. Let's focus in on Syria right now. The president just moments ago gave a press conference, and the first question was on Syria. And basically, when asked about it, he rambled on for about 15 minutes. And in the rambling, he said that what Russia did by, now going into Syria, combining with Iran and Hezbollah, and bombing our allies, our moderate rebel allies, quote-unquote moderate rebels, is really no different than what Russia's been doing all along and Iran has been doing all along. It's just they're being more overt about it. Is that not waving the white flag of surrender?
Well, it is, and I think it's also inaccurate because the Russians are now actively militarily involved, which was not the case before. Unfortunately, the vacuum that was created when the United States failed to respond to the uprising against Assad has been filled by a lot of characters who do not have our interest at heart, including most recently Putin. And the situation is out of hand. I don't think he understands it. I don't think he understands that militant Islam on one side and the Assad regime on the other can't possibly produce a healthy result. We missed the train. And it's excuses now for why we did, but not an explanation.
Yeah, and Obama, again, in this one answer to one question, went on, and he's always covering himself, and he brought up the vacuum, the word vacuum, which you just alluded to, and said that the notion that Putin is filling a vacuum is absurd, and that there's no strength there. It's Putin and Iran against the rest of the world, a coalition of 60 countries.
Well, one should ask what the coalition of 60 countries is actually doing. And the answer is it's not doing much because there's no leadership. When there's no American leadership, there's no leadership, period. And talking about a coalition that is doing nothing seems to me completely meaningless.
Yeah, well, so basically, he's going to do nothing here, too. He said that actually said that he'd be willing to work with Putin if Putin can broker a solution being, and it's interesting the way he used the words, he said that Assad, he didn't say Assad has to go, he said Assad has to transition, which I found, as a layman, I found very interesting.
Well, I don't know what he has in mind by that. Maybe he has in mind that Assad pledges to go sometime after he's out of office, after Obama's out of office.
Right.
He's in the midst of a transition, too.
Yeah.
There is no strategy. And in the past, the administration has acknowledged that there's no strategy, but they haven't found one. And to say that we are organizing or leading a coalition is nonsense in the face of inaction on our part and vigorous action by the Russians and by ISIS and other radical elements on the other side.
Absolutely. All right. It is always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. I thank you so much. We'll speak to you again soon.
All the best.
Thank you. All right, folks. We're coming back with Gimme 5. And if you like Chris Christie or you don't like Chris Christie, you're going to want to see this. I promise you. Don't go away.